The pressure on Japanese people to conform is like no other in the Western world. Mind you, South Korea could go close. Over the decades, Japan has grappled with the work-life balance. Life in Japan isn't everyone's cup of tea, even for the Japanese themselves. Within society has developed a subsector called hikikomori, modern-day city-dwelling hermits that have all but cut off personal contact with the outside world, living an existence reminiscent of a self-imposed level 4 lockdown without the walk around the block. The ability to live vicariously online has seen a rise in numbers, which sit at between 500,000 and 1.5 million individuals, depending on your definition of a recluse. Those sort of figures mean that 1 in 100 people in Japan is an apartment-dwelling recluse. Nor is this phenomena confined to teenage boy gamer types. The average age for a hikikomori is around 30, and around almost half are female, as you're about to find out. The Southern Tramping or Hiking Circuit is a network of tracks connecting huts on the south end of Stewart Island. It is accurately described by New Zealand's Department of Conservation as challenging and only for experienced trampers. The following photos depicting a bog-like track are accurate. Take it from a person that has dabbled in the New Zealand bush, engaged in what is called tramping as opposed to hiking. Stewart Island is a challenge. But before we get too far ahead, let's get our bearings. For the benefit of overseas viewers, Stewart Island, which is also known by its traditional Maori name of Rakiura, is the third largest island in New Zealand, the one below the South Island. A large island for a population of around 400. Centred around Oban, the only township there, it is connected by ferry to Bluff, the port for Invercargill, as well as Invercargill Airport. Tourism is a major thing on the island, as well as fishing. And if you do go there, be sure to stay at Iris and Peter's place in Oban. Sail ashore. No, I'm not getting commission. I just wanted to plug enterprising and friendly Kiwis, having stayed there myself. Outside Oban, in the rugged bush and amazing varying landscapes, Stewart Island is not the place for a city slicker from, say, Wellington, let alone a diminutive woman from Tokyo. Keiko Agatsuma. The year is 1978, August to be more exacting, and Japanese tourism was a big money spinner in New Zealand. Overall, Japanese tourists were synonymous as bus travellers, moving from site to site in homogeneous groups armed with cameras normally reserved for sporting sideline photographers. The late 30-year-old Keiko Agatsuma was a complete opposite of the stereotype. She was travelling alone with no plans, just went where the wind blew. After 4 months touring the South Island, she disembarked the ferry from Bluff at Oban with a pack and 2 boxes of groceries she had purchased in Invercargill. By now, she had far exceeded her tourist visa. Before I progress, I need to point out that the record here is rather dominated by her final abode and the media attention that garnished. There is no consensus as to why Keiko chose Stewart Island or even the South Island to seek solace, nor what exactly were the reasons behind her need to go bush in such an extreme manner. Her feet had hardly touched Oban, and she was then on a charter up Patterson's Inlet with a plan to walk across the island to where there was a forestry hut at Mason's Bay. Ignoring the protestations of the vessel's crew and the locals about the challenging conditions in front of her, either through lack of English or sheer doggedness, exposure to the elements or injury could result in death for a lone, underprepared hiker. Although make it to Mason's Bay forestry hut she did. This is the hut today. It is now a 20 bunker, but at the time it was far less salubrious, bedded 12, and it is set just off the beach. That beach is stunning. You can land a plane there, which is how hunters largely get in and out. For those that think the waters look inviting, and take it from moi, the waters are rather brisk, and you'll need to do a lot of paddling to keep warm. Another big change from 1978 till today was that Masons Bay was being farmed at the time. Right next door was a farm being run by the Keiko family. Runs were permitted on the island till 1985. The Keiko family sort of adopted Agatsuma, for want of a better term, kept her fed in exchange for labour on the farm. By now most of her supplies she arrived at Masons Bay having well been exhausted. To the family, the Japanese lady occupying the forestry hut was a bit reserved, nothing more. The relationship was not assisted by her lack of English. One day she left the comparative comfort of Mason Bay and headed south to Doughboy. Map time again. What was at Doughboy Bay? In terms of shelter, nothing. It's hard to emphasise on a video of this nature the perilous nature of her journeys in the New Zealand bush. And to sober you up, the Stewart Island experiences 200 to 250 days of rain per year. This was one determined individual. And this is the story from now on the world was about to hear. It's the point where fact and fiction become blurred. At Doughboy, another great spot with an impressive landable beach, she made her home in a shoreline cave under a granite cliff. This was truly as far from her life in Tokyo as you could get. Not the most remote place in New Zealand. I've done a video on that. Nor, for that matter, is this the first video I've done on a remarkable lady who battled the elements on Stewart Island. She got to have an offshore island named after her. Links to both of those oldies in the description. For perspective and to juxtapose her new environment, 6,000 people live in every square kilometre of Tokyo. On Stewart Island, the population density is 0.2 per thousand for every square kilometre, and at any one time probably half of those are in Oban. The local pub there at times can literally be housing 10% of the island's population on a busy, cold winter's night. At Doughboy Bay, Agatsuma set herself up with a long-term plan of subsistence lifestyle, the shoreline having abundant shellfish and the ocean lots and lots of fish. Not that her new abode had escaped the attention of others, and this had both positive and negative factors. The islanders and fishermen considered her slightly odd, but utterly harmless. She was given food by sympathetic fishermen and forestry department staff as well. On the other side of the coin was her story had leaked off the island and onto the walls of Bluff, etc. The story of a hermit Japanese lady living in a cave on Stewart Island went global. The public wanted to know more. They wanted photos and interviews. This was, of course, Keiko Agatsuma's nightmare. All she wanted was to be left alone. And soon after decking out the cave with creature comforts, a bed, bench and converting a 44-gallon drum into a cooker-cum-heater, and planes began arriving on the beach and reporters and cameramen descended on her secluded spot. The attached photo was surreptitiously snapped by the Southern Times. All this unwanted attention led her going bush, until the media ran out of time or money on the chartered aircraft and buzzed back to Invercargill empty-handed. What led her stay on Stewart Island, ending prematurely, was twofold. First, she got sick, a stomach upset of some form, and sought assistance from some hunters who took her for medical treatment in Invercargill on board their chartered aircraft. The other event was largely taking place at the other end of the country, in the country's largest city. What were termed the Dawn Raids. Immigration was undertaking a hardline deportation policy for those who had originally entered the country on tourist visas. After arriving for medical treatment in Invercargill, authorities became aware of Agatsuma's status, and soon she was in court and facing deportation. All this time, whilst a voracious news media circled seeking an exclusive interview. As the clock ticked down on Keiko, she was placed in the hands of the Salvation Army, and her relatives from Japan were contacted so she could be chaperoned on a flight home from Christchurch. This wasn't the end to the story she wanted. In one last attempt to perhaps slip into the bush, or simply lay eyes on the place she felt at peace, she managed to persuade the police she had hidden a stash of money at Doughboy Bay and wanted to retrieve it. There was no hidden loot, and after 210 days in New Zealand, Keiko Agatsuma was deported from New Zealand in the company of her brother. And the reason why there are so few photos and plenty of uncorroborated stories about her time in New Zealand is simple. Throughout the time here, she wanted to be left alone, shunned publicity, never spoke of her life on the island or in the cave. No one really got a handle on why she fled Japan in the first place. A 5'1" enigma. That's what makes this story so intriguing and endearing. There was even a movie made about her time on Stewart Island, which was such an utter load of garbage. The only bit right they got was the cave. I'm not even going to read it out. And by now, Keiko Agatsuma must be in her late 70s. What happened to her when she returned to Japan is equally somewhat of a mystery. It is known she entered the film industry, and after that, the trail goes cold. Whatever happened to her, I'm sure her happy place will always remain the cave at Doughboy Bay. One sentence stuck out to me when researching the story. It came from Tim and Nairi Tiaika, the farming couple who got to know her better than anyone. They said she would have lived here forever if she got a choice. And that rings true to me. To end this on a positive note, her spirited attempt to escape the modern world has left one indelible mark. Her bolt hole is now called Keiko's Cave. Before you go, I'd like to fill you up with some more watching pleasure besides the Aboriginal lady on Stewart Island and New Zealand's most remotest place. I've also done a video on New Zealand's hardcore hermit in the form of Gerald cover. He lived up the windswept mountain on the west coast. Links for all of those three are in the description. A big shout out to those that share my videos, plonking them on Facebook and the like. This helps introduce new viewers to my channel and I really appreciate it. I hope this video has also tweaked your interest to step on to Rakiora. There is beauty in ruggedness. I'll spot you next time.